always. You will be part of me, and I will forever feel your strength when I need it most. You're gone now, gone but not forgotten. I can't say this to your face, but I know you hear. I'll see you again. You never realize I feel you walk beside me. I know I'll see you again. When I'm alone, I'm missing you like crazy. I tell myself so hopeless to have had you in my life. My life. I'll see you again. You really let go. I feel you walk beside me. No, I'll see you again. When I have the time to tell you, never live to see a day. The love should never come to one in my darkest hour. I tell myself I'll see you again. I'll see you again. I'll see you again. I'll see you again. You like crazy. Never forget your face. I feel you walk beside me. Never leave. God, but I forgot. I feel your presence. A pleasant good morning to you. It is such a pleasure to be back with you here in studio, in person, all renewed,
all energized. And Trudy, what did you say? I look like a new man?
Yes. A brand new man.
Yes, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Good morning, Trudy. When I came in, I always love to talk about your
The
outfit.
colors, yes.
Yes, and I love the fact that you were in black and
Black
white,
and white, and you were
but I
in black.
love the pinch of that bold orange belt. And so that's when someone is so comfortable with navigating with colors. And oftentimes people would feel like, okay, I'm wearing black and white, so what do I do? And the average person might just put red with it
Mm.
because it's very, it's an easy escape. But going with that orange, I endorse that.
You have to be different. Carlton, good morning to you. Good morning to our listeners. You have been, as I tell the listeners when I sign on in the morning, Carlton is MIA, but for good reason. And you've been out for 3 weeks, Carlton, it
Yes,
was?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So our listeners haven't
Yes,
had you on
yes,
Health
yes.
Vibes for 3 Wednesdays.
Yes,
And I was missing in action last week.
yes.
Jacinfa Fagan has been holding down the fort. So,
Yes,
Jacinfa, good morning to
consistency, yes.
you. And yes, Carlton, good to have you back. Good to be back in studio here at Health Vibes Q95. We always have a good time.
Definitely. Well, Trudy, I came back last week, Tuesday, and to my bewilderance, I lost one of my staff. At Jolly's, we have departments and so forth. You're responsible for staff and so forth. And so I lost one of my long serving staff in the sales department, which I manage at Jolly's as part of my other responsibilities, Naomi Sanderson. And I classified or characterized Naomi as the go getter. I mean, everybody in the team are go getters, but she was like, she had a persistence, but it was masked with almost like an effortless, not aggressive. So when Naomi would have gone to Whitchurch or ACS, because she worked in the Roseau catchment area, starting from Mams all the way to Greens in Castle Comfort. And Naomi would maybe be introducing a new product or really want that product in that store. She never was that tack, but she would have sold the information, let the merchant or the supervisor of that establishment think about it. Then she comes back next whenever she comes back in the other week, and then she says, I gave you some more opportunities to think about this. What do you think? But she was just that type of person. I think she really epitomized what it was to be a high achiever. So it's like the more work you give her, is that she would never regress, she would never relent, she would never say it's too much. And this is the Naomi that we so missed today. And believe it or not, today is Naomi's birthday.
Wow.
So Naomi would have been 44 today.
Wow.
But she is celebrating her 44th birthday elsewhere. And we still say to God be the glory, great things he has done. I don't think I would have had that strength to say so last week, Saturday, when the news broke. Because for me, it was really, I mean, when you work with people and you have such an awesome team, I mean, I was saying that I think Naomi may have been working with Jollies for the past 16 years or thereabouts.
Wow.
And I don't think Naomi has any disciplinary letter in her file. Nothing. Not to do with attendance, not to do with lateness, not to do with anything like that. You understand? And that is the type of profile that every one of us want to endeavor to leave in a workplace. And so we will have a memory. We'll be celebrating her. I know she'll be laid to rest at some point, but Naomi was an awesome person to her family, her mother, her father, her brother, her sister, all her loved ones, all her fans, all her, she had a huge fan base. We say we know that you are mourning with us, and we know that you have sent so many kind sentiments to us, expressing your condolences, not just to her family, but to the family that she worked with, Jolly's Pharmacy. And we are really close knit. And I think it was really tough for me because it's less than practically a year since I lost two members of my team. So you would have remembered Hermia died last
Yes,
year,
yes.
April, and Hermia was our merchandiser. She worked under my supervision, and then she passed at the age of 50, and then now Naomi has passed on at the age of 43. But again, we know that God does all things well. And one of the things that I always console myself with is that sometimes death is the ultimate healing. We may not understand it because earthly we bond ourselves so much with people that it's always humanistically difficult to have to separate. But oftentimes, if we were to look back at maybe what the enemy may have planned for the person or what their life condition would have been post their diagnosis, sometimes it's not what they would have wanted. And the type of person that she was, always full of energy, I think that's the way she wanted to go. For the many friends and colleagues who were with her and were at her bedside until she took her last breath, people like Mrs. Dover and Rosie's and Shania, they would have said to me that she did not suffer.
Okay,
She did not suffer. It's almost like
good.
as though she just lost the breath. She just
went
lost
in
the breath.
peace.
She just went off. The light just went off. And so I just wanted to start off the show really truly celebrating the life of Naomi. Hence the reason that song was played, I'll See You Again. So
Carlton, but I want to extend condolences, of course, to her family, friends, and the Jollies family. I mean, when you speak of the longevity of staff,
Yes.
the tenure of staff at Jollies, I know that the family is very tight knit, and I can imagine it will be a difficult time for the Jollies family, having lost one of their members of a family, you know. So I just want to extend condolences to the team. I did notice quite a few members of the Jollies family sharing her picture and so on their social media platforms. So I can sense the impact that she had on the entire team. So I just want to extend my condolences. Of course, I'm an honorary member of the Jollies family. I don't work with you all on a day-to-day basis, but I just know that this must be hard for her work family at Jollies.
Definitely. Yes. But Trudy, as you know, I traveled overseas, and I must say good morning to some amazing Dominicans that those some that I met for the first time. I was liming with my friend Kevin, who is originally from Granby, Kevin Laura, Dr. Kevin Laura. We were liming a lot, and he took me all over. And I met his aunt, who is from Granby, and I found out she's family member to me. And because my grandfather came from Granby, my mother's father, and all of that. And today's Kevin's birthday too.
Okay.
So Kevin, if you're listening, sometimes you do listen to QFM while you drive on your vehicle, while you are in Atlanta driving all over the place. Good morning to you, my friend. I do hope that you'll have an awesome time. All my friends from La Plaine who are living in Atlanta, we had such great time. Good morning to you as well. And so I just wanted to highlight that we actually went to see Mr. Alcindor, Ralph Alcindor, but he wasn't home. He was so disappointed that he didn't meet me because he's such a huge fan of Hell Vibes.
Okay.
And Ralph Alcindor. So if you listen to me, Mr. Alcindor, I know where you live now. The next time I come to Atlanta, I'll be knocking your door. But good morning to you and your family, and to everyone who was so hospitable to me during my stay in Atlanta. Truly, just again reminding the listeners that Customer Appreciation Week is coming up. That is in the month of July. I know you might say, but June hasn't arrived. But June is just about Sunday, begins June. Actually, Sunday is my birthday, the 1st of June. And so we want you to get ready for the third week of July, Customer Appreciation, where this year, truly, you are going to be very much involved with us. We are planning a real amazing customer appreciation. We've made some alterations and some new additions to some of the activities that we will be ushering or selling or giving out or you know, or displaying to the public, and I can guarantee you they are going to love this. And so we want you to just get excited on as we approach, get into the summer. And July is just around the corner. It's not very, very far.
No.
July is just around the corner. And so we will be looking forward to you participating with us. In August, it's going to be a big month for us as well because August, the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists will be holding its convention right here in Dominica.
In Dominica, nice.
Yes, and every year the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists, that's where all pharmacists within the Caribbean Basin meet, and awards are given to pharmacists. All the awards that I've received, most of them came from those types of conventions where pharmacists are recognized for their hard work and stuff. This year, Dominica will be hosting, and I do hope truly that a Dominican pharmacist will get the award
win.
for Pharmacist of the Year. So let's hope that a Dominican pharmacist leaves with the coveted award of
Pharmacist of the
Caribbean
Year.
Pharmacist of the Year. I've been second runner-up twice.
Okay.
Twice. So I am looking forward. That's the ultimate award that I've always wanted to win. And I've been runner-up. I've been second place twice.
How is it determined, Carlton? Is it by vote? Is it by?
It is determined by votes.
Okay.
But at the same time, too, when the committee meets, they really look. It has to go beyond your everyday work.
Okay.
So, what impact has your profession has on the community?
Okay.
That type of thing. How involved are you in groups, particularly health groups? Dominica Cancer Society, Dominica Kidney Association, these types of things, and how have your presence basically made a tangible difference in the lives of the people or the advocacy that particular group is pushing. So it's a very vetted area. The last time I was nominated and got second place, I was there was an Antiguan colleague of mine who won, but I was really happy for him because his area of expertise is not very common in the Caribbean, and that is to do with drug surveillance.
Okay.
So he intercepts counterfeit drugs and that type of things, the testing of drugs to make sure that the drugs that meet our shelves are actually what
it's supposed to be, right, and of high quality.
So he's done a lot of work in that area, and he won the award, and I was really, really happy for him because it's an area that many of us may not consider getting into, but it's another, because it has a lot of legal aspect to it, but it's another very great area in the field.
Okay.
So we're hoping in August we can
a Dominican can walk away. Well, we look forward to that,
Dominican
Carlton.
Who won that award was Orin Jolie won that award. I think in 2017 he may have won. 2017, I think he would have won that award, the Caribbean Pharmacist of the Year, because he was very instrumental, and he had the edge because he was very instrumental in starting off the associate degree program in pharmacy at the Dominica State College. So again, as I said, it's more than just about your everyday work.
It's going beyond.
It has to be beyond. You have to be making a major impact. Yes.
Carlton, well, we look forward to August. And
yes, we look forward to August.
What that will bring.
Definitely. All right. So we are going to take a short break, and then we will really get into our discussion. This morning, we are going to be focusing on the expiration of drugs. The expiration of drugs. What do I do when my drugs are expired? How do I know? Is it safe to use my drug even post the expiry date? So these are some of the areas that we're going to be focusing on this morning on Health Vibes. Please stay tuned. This morning feeling risky. I had been patients to call in sick, but I end up in Jolly's pharmacy. And down to the street, Jolly's fix up my immune system. Me feeling fit and strong now. I'm ready to work and pick on any mission. If you see me again, Jolly's pharmacy is number one. Jolly's for you. We cater for everyone. Jolly's for you. The immune system. Jolly's for you. Yeah.
Yo, Dominic is the boy Father Box. Whenever I'm in town and I'm feeling down, I head to Johnny's Pharmacy. They boost me up real quick. Johnny's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare. Introducing Johnny's Pharmacy, brand new website www.johnny's.gm. It's your time to jump the line. Shop now at johnny's.gm and have your items delivered in the comfort of your office. No more standing in line. No need to use your lunch hour to shop. Hassle-free shopping, safe and secure. Johnny's.gm features rush delivery, 1 hour. In-store pickup, regular delivery, 5 p.m. Cut-off time, 4 p.m. It's your time to jump the line. www.johnny's.gm. Johnny's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
Oh, and if they say convenience make a big difference, then you can trust me. I know just where you should be. That is JP Mega. The one-stop shopping for me, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. Shop if you're not happy, feel so sharp. It's to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, JP Mega. The one-stop shopping for me, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. Shop if I had my alone. It's to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, what a happy place. But just stick some more any item and you automatically qualify for discounts. Check us out at the Mega Store in Fongole where there's lots of parking on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. JP Mega, the best family shopping experience.
Introducing Johnny's Pharmacy, brand new website www.johnny's.gm. It's your time to jump the line. Shop now at johnny's.gm and have your items delivered in the comfort of your office. No more standing in line. No need to use your lunch hour to shop. Hassle-free shopping, safe and secure. Johnny's.gm features rush delivery, 1 hour. In-store pickup, regular delivery, 5 p.m. Cut-off time, 4 p.m. It's your time to jump the line. www.johnny's.gm. Johnny's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
All right, so we're back with you this morning on Health Vibes. As we said, we are going to be focusing on one of the features that you would have seen or you would recognize on most products, and it's a feature, and that is the expiry date. And believe it or not, even soaps now, you are seeing expiry
Expiries.
dates on there. Many products that never had expiry dates before, you are now seeing expiry dates on them. Some of us, we take chances and use these products post the date. And some of us, we are extremely disciplined when it comes to anything that's expired. We do not take no chances. We dump it off.
Carlton, some of us, well, I think you should first start off by saying some of us need to know what is the expiry date
I know.
and, to even look for it because there are some people who are not aware of this date and don't even check for it. I have seen a lot of people just completely oblivious to expiration, not just of drugs, yeah, but of
Yes,
food
of food.
items as
Yes,
well.
yes.
So you will start off by even talking about what is that date and the
Yes.
importance of the date because there are other category of people that just are unaware
I know.
completely.
Very true.
Unaware completely.
Yes. So an expiration date or expiry date is a previously determined date after which something should no longer be used, neither by operation of law or by exceeding the expectation of the shelf life. So when a product is made, um, there are laws and regulations and policies that must govern that product. So we need to know what is the shelf life of that corned beef, that tuna, that fish, that cow, that goat that was slaughtered X time, and went through a procurement process, went to all the microbiological process to make sure that it is good for consumption and placed in that can or whatever it is. How good is that product? What is the shelf life? So experts normally do testings, right? And those are scientifically based evidence-based testings to find out the composition. They look at the disintegration of the product. They assess the smell of the product, the appearance of the product under certain temperatures within a specific time frame. And based on that, these are some of the factors or variables that would determine the length of time that product should be in use of
Right.
and be
Right.
healthy, particularly if it's a food or a drug, and would have the right benefit for a human being within that specific time frame.
And Carlton, I would assume as well, if the product has preservatives added
Yes.
to it, they would determine how long would that preservative
Yes.
be able to preserve the item, and after which time it would no longer have that preservative effect, so it would no longer be preserved. I would assume too the chemists would determine if it's a drug, the half-life of the drug, or
true.
what time the
Yes.
drug takes
Yes.
to to deteriorate. So they would also, so it's so many calculations,
Yes,
I'm
a
sure,
lot.
go into determining the expiry date
Yes.
that we need to pay attention.
Yes.
A lot of work has gone into determining that for us.
Yes.
So you don't have to guess for yourself, so the people have done the work. So we should definitely be paying attention to what they have determined is our expiration date for that good.
Right. And can you imagine that they would have also tested before the product gets on the shelf what happens if consumed after the expiry
Right,
date within a
right.
specific time? So I'm sure they will do maybe a 15, a 20 days, let's say a 30 days, a 60 days, a 90 days, a 120 days,
Yes.
and engage all those different samples and see what happens.
What would happen?
Because we're also looking at prevention of complications and side effects, that may occur if taken post the expiry date.
expiration date.
So the question is, why expiry dates matter? Why do they matter? And as I said, it's merely a feature, but it's a feature that ushers the benefit. And that's where the why comes in. So it's a feature on the product, right? Just like you would have the color of the product, you would have the product as to whether it's made of wood or plastic. All these are features of the product. But we want to know, what are the benefits? So are there benefits to having expiry dates? So expiry dates are not merely guidelines, they are actually essential to ensuring the safety. So that's the first key word there. You want to remember safety and effectiveness of the medication. How safe is this medication prior to it being expired, and how safe is it after being expired? All right.
Okay.
And how effective is that medication? And all of us, when prescriptions are written for us, highlighting a medication for an ailment or condition, we are all expecting that medication to work.
Right.
So
right.
we have a back pain, the doctor prescribes a medication for the pain. You would want and hope that you get relief within X. The
Amount
doctor
of
might
time.
tell you might get relief in the next 3 hours or 4 hours, that type of thing. And you are anticipating that particular benefit, that result. And so when we talk about expiry dates, we must encapsulate safety as one of the main key essential reasons, and effectiveness, whether it's of the food, whether it's of the medication. But today we're focusing
On the medication.
merely on medications. All right? So oftentimes, from most research, it has shown that using drugs past the expiration can result in ineffective treatment or potential health risk.
Right.
And we will explain that further, why that is so. Right? I will explain that further, why particularly the aspect of health risk. How is that a major factor in using drugs or a product that may have passed the
Expiration, yes. Carlton, I think that is the critical thing. A lot of people are worried about what could happen to them some sort of adverse effect if they take something past the expiration date. So I know sometimes people take things and it's only after they take it they realize
Yes.
that this thing was expired, and then they would panic. Oh my God, maybe I will get sick. Maybe I will, what could be the impact of taking that thing post expiration? So I know that aspect people would be very interested to hear.
All right. So I'm going to go right through it because it's an area that you've brought up, and I don't want to next thing I forget it. So that's a real good point that you've raised. The first guideline that we want to establish, you as a consumer of any product, but as I said today, we're solely focusing on medications. So you are a consumer of medication. You as a consumer taking a medication. The first thing that you want to notice or know is the expiry date of the medication. Okay? So you want to know the expiry date of the medication. 2, you want to look at the appearance of the medication, right? How does that particular medicine look to you? How does it smell, right? Is that tablet disintegrating or breaking up? You bought the tablet 5 days ago, and then within the next 5 days, you've seen it discolorized. There are brown little dots on it, what we call oxidization. And oftentimes that has to do with oxygen contacting some of the active ingredients in the drug, giving it a discolorization. That may not necessarily mean that the drug is not good again. However, in some cases and some drugs, it can sort of the keyword compromise or reduce the effectiveness
Of the drug.
of the
Okay.
drug, depending on the active ingredient of the drug and some of the inert active ingredients that are included as well. Now, let's suppose that you have some cocodamol that expired in March of this year, and you still have it in your kit, and a headache. You have a headache, and you really have that headache because it's after 2 in the morning, and you have this headache, and you need relief because you want to sleep. What do you do? Now, from a pharmacological standpoint, that particular drug, cocodamol, we would say that it has a shelf life post-expiring of up to 6 months after.
Okay.
It can be used. However, the effectiveness may be reduced by at least 10%. So it will begin to lose its potency.
Okay.
Now, the caution that must be taken with that is that the patient should note and have that information that they don't overdose or end up taking several doses in a short space of time, compromising key organs. So, for example, cocodamol has codeine, right? And which works on the central nervous system. And it also has acetaminophen, which is metabolized by the liver, broken down by the liver. Now, that same acetaminophen, that active ingredient, can be very toxic to the liver and can actually cause liver cirrhosis, like alcohol does if it's taken too much. So that's why if somebody takes an overdose of paracetamol, they can die easily. Okay, so yes, you might say, "Boy, that I took those 2 tablets and they're not working," and you really want that, and you end up taking 4 more because you're checking they expire.
not-
So your
right.
mind telling you maybe they're a little weak, but at the end of the day, you're compromising a key organ.
Wow.
So that's why we generally would not recommend that any drug that is expired be still used unless you have that knowledge, that knowledge base. And we still have to factorize your underlying medical conditions.
Okay.
So it's not as much as you want the relief, as much as in some there's some evidence that still indicates that the medication may be effective, but we still have to take it case by case by case,
Mhm.
because we have to look at other medications that you may be on
Mhm.
that potentially puts you at risk for toxicity, particularly to that medication that is expired already, right? We have to look at um, your medical conditions itself, what stages they are,
Mhm.
and how some of these drugs can be affecting these medical conditions, and how can this expired drug or drugs even further compound these conditions.
Mhm. But Carlton, an interesting thing you mentioned in this scenario that you gave. So you said, for instance, it's 2 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
you know, you're in pain, and this is the drug that you have, it's expired. And, you know, basically the time of the pain, 2 a.m., it's not one that you can call your pharmacist or go to the pharmacy and
Mhm.
ask. So, what is the best? Because you mentioned you have to think of the underlying medical conditions, or you know what impact it may have on your organs or so on. How do we best navigate that if it's, you know, at an inopportune time that we want to use that drug? It's past working hours and we really want some relief. And I'm asking that
It's a good
specifically
question.
because the scenario you are giving, you mentioned cocodamol, but for other pain medications as well,
Naproxen,
right,
Aleve.
ibuprofen,
Mhm.
Tylenol. A lot of us may have these things in our cupboards and they've been there for a long time. Honestly, I think many people have
Mhm.
expired pain medication
Mhm.
in their cupboard or wherever
Yeah.
they keep their medication. Pain medication, everybody has some bottle of
Mhm.
it somewhere. So how can we, you know, in pain navigate those questions that you are posing that we should consider before we take the drug?
All right. So I know that with pain, it brings about anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that anxiety can actually create an increase in your pulse rate, an increase in your blood pressure too. Because if you're restless and you are agitated or irritated, you are more likely to get elevation in your pulse and your blood pressure. Now, what I would recommend in that particular case is that you follow the guidelines on that particular label
On
or
the package.
prescription. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if it says 2 tablets to be taken every 4 hours, follow that guideline
Okay.
and take the 2 tablets every 4 hours and monitor
Mm-hmm.
what happens. If you do not get the relief within that time, the said relief that you want, then you could visit your doctor
Okay.
next morning
The
or so.
next day.
But
Okay.
don't go overdosing
Okay.
and then potentially putting yourself at risk.
At risk.
So
Okay.
just follow. I would recommend that you keep on following the recommended dosage
Mhm.
and regimen that was recommended by the prescriber,
By the prescriber.
or the manufacturer.
Okay, so I think that's important advice for the listeners
Yes.
to take home. So if the drug is expired and we're talking pain medication in
Yes,
this
in that,
instance,
yes.
you still follow the regimen that was indicated on the packaging for that drug. So you don't try to overdose. That's a good piece of advice, Carlton.
Yes, yes.
So it's you know, you can use that advice for whichever one that it is that you may have, you know, whichever pain medication, you follow what the label says.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I'm just thinking about, and it may be something that we may have to look into as a company, because I think for most companies with prescription labels that would print prescription drugs, I don't think they include the expiry date on the label.
No, no.
So I think it is something that may be warranted.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes what I say to people is, if you've had a particular medication for over a year on use and it doesn't have an expiry date, I would recommend that you discard it
Mhm.
for safe keeping, that you discard it rather than you keep it and you're not sure of the expiry date, particularly if you are confident that you've used this or you've had this for over a year. Even myself, I came back home and I went through my medicine kit and I discarded a lot of medicines too that I had that had expired.
Mhm.
Because we always do that approaching the hurricane season. That is a
Right.
staple at my house. So every time the hurricane season, it's an opportune time to go back to the first aid kit
Mhm.
and begin to do your assessment, your evaluation, your audit, so to speak, your stock audit, your stock taking,
Mhm.
and see what needs to be added, what needs to be thrown. You might think that the glove you have in there is good, but the glove might have dry rot
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and is no longer good.
Mhm.
So when around this time, around the hurricane season is coming, that's a good time to do so. Um,
Carlton, and yes, and we've spoken about this on the show before, the hurricane preparedness tip of
mhm.
preparing your medical kit or your first aid kit. But another thing, yes, as you rightly said, there are a lot of drugs people may have and that are necessary. Maybe like your antibiotic creams,
Yes.
your cough and cold medication
Yes.
that are necessary, but people keep those things for a long time because you may
Yes.
have it, you may use some, the rest of it is there, and you really need to take stock of those, the expiration date on them, and discard them if they are expired. Antifungal creams, that's
That's
something,
true.
for instance,
Yes.
I when I look around, I see I have antifungal cream I use some, it's there for over
I know.
over a year plus and it's expired. So it's a good stock taking time, for some of
Yeah.
those essential medications we all have at home, to take, stock of their expiration date and discard accordingly.
All right. So we're going to switch gears a little.
Mhm.
And I really want you to take note of that, listeners. I really want you to take note of this one very, very closely. I know that some of our listeners do take notes. They have the pen, they have the paper. Now is a good time to maybe get the pen and paper, if you can, because you might want to take some notes based on what I'm going to narrate to you. So there are some classes of medications, classes of drugs that you must avoid using once they have expired.
Expired. Okay.
So once these classes of drugs are expired, you must dump them. They should not be, you should not go on and say, well, okay, I can maybe use it for an extra week or maybe another 2 weeks. Once they fall in this class, then I want you to take note. And if you do have any medicine that falls in this class, that I want you to take note. So the first one, all injectable medications. Any medication that you have to inject yourself with, once it has expired, whether it's a birth control, whether it's insulin, whether it's a medication that you're using for blood clots or for circulation issues, anything, right? Whether it's for pain management, you might have cancer and you're using an injectable for pain management. Once it, whether it's a vaccine too, once it is injectable and it has expired, please kindly do not use it. And we'll talk about this. We'll talk about how we discard these things, but do not use it. If you're using medication for seizures, so using any type of medication for seizures, let's say carbamazepine, phenobarbital, phenytoin, any of these drugs that you're using for seizures, do not use them post expiry. Eye drops, right? You can take a chance with ear drops, but not eye drops.
Carlton,
Right?
I have a question about this.
Yes.
I don't want to trip you, but Carlton, I've had eye drops where there's an expiration date on the package. The eye drop instruction itself says, do not use it after the
Expiry date.
not after the expiration date, but after the regime, the dose. So if you have extra, to
That's a
not
good
use
question.
it. But I have kept it there, and this, like, I've had eye drops for conjunctivitis. So there is a remnant in the bottle. The expiration date has not arrived, and I get conjunctivitis again. And I ask myself, can't I just use the remainder of that eye drop because the expiration date is not reached? Can't I just use it? But the label said don't use it after the the initial. So what's up with eye drops?
You're making me love my profession.
What's the reasoning
And
behind that?
that's the kind of questions we love to hear.
Mhm.
That's what makes my job. I look forward going to work every day. These kind of questions, brilliant question.
Mhm.
contamination.
Ah,
So the opening and closing, open and closing, open and closing of the drop increases the risk of contamination,
okay.
right?
Mhm.
And because of that, then it predisposes you. So let's say you have that very same drop there, right? We also must factorize storage too, where it's stored, what room temperature it's stored at. So all of that can interfere with the efficacy
Of the
of
drug.
the drug
Okay.
and can predisposes you to even a greater infection. So
Okay.
that's why in eye drops in particular, they would
You have
have
to
that.
be
And
special.
remember that the eye has very thin membranes, and so when drops are entered into the eye or put or instilled in the eye, the bioavailability is very high that they get to the membrane very quickly.
Okay.
They're very absorbent.
Okay.
And that is why anything that our eye gets in touch with or contact with, it causes irritation this minute. The brain sends that signal that this is an irritant. Okay, whether it's a speck of dust or pollen or whatever it is. So so that's why eye drops fall in that category. Blood thinners. So if you are using any type of blood thinners, and that includes over-the-counter blood thinners, particularly herbal blood thinners. So you might be using Omega XL, which can also be considered a blood thinner, right? Ginkgo biloba is also a blood thinner. Ginger capsules, turmeric capsules, all of these are considered, they have blood thinning properties as well. So whether it is botanical or herbal, or whether it is synthetic, you have to avoid using it post the
Expiration.
expiry date. Liquid antibiotics, and that's another interesting one because that happens at my home all the time. I have a daughter. My daughter, this one, she gets tonsillitis how many times in a year? Antibiotics are given. Within 5 to 7 days, she's better, and the residue is on the refrigerator. Sometimes my wife is reluctant to want to dump it because she like, oh, but it can still be used. But that's the same thing we're talking about. The opening, closing can impact and cause levels of contamination. And depending on the type of antibiotic, it might actually spoil.
Okay.
All right. So liquid antibiotics, once they should be dumped. Oral inhalers. So the inhalers for your asthma or your COPD, right? You may be diagnosed with some lung condition and you're using inhalers. We want you to pay attention to these inhalers and the storage. Inhalers should never be stored in the vehicle and be closed in the vehicle all day long. The heat is going to basically destroy the key benefits, the therapeutic efficacy of the active ingredients in the inhalers. So a lot of times people, and I always say to asthmatics, ensure that you have inhalers in different parts of the house, particularly if you're chronic sufferer. Even in your bathroom, you should have a bronchodilator at least there. But make sure you pay attention to the dates at all times. Okay? EpiPens. So EpiPens are not very popular in the typical household,
Right.
unless you really have an acute hypersensitivity
Severe
or
allergy.
allergic reaction to bees and insects and things like that, which can cause in most of the times bronchospasms, where you get an acute inflammation of the bronchioles, and which that inflammation is now going to cause the bronchioles to release a lot of mucus, and that can cause broncho. I'm trying to get the right term,
Or
but it could
the
cause
restriction
you
of the airways.
That's it, obstruction, and that could cause you to die because the air sacs are so severely inflamed that they begin to constrict, and oxygen cannot get in there and you can die. So if you have an EpiPen too, and you have it at home because you are one of these people that suffers with allergies and can easily be a potential risk, you want to look at the expiry date. Birth controls. So if you're taking birth controls, whether in injectables or in um, in tablet
Pills, oral
forms,
pills.
you want to look at the birth controls, because one of the potential risk of oral birth controls is can cause um, it can cause blood clots. All right. So it can cause blood clots in some cases. So if the active ingredients in some of these are expired, then it predisposes you. We talk about risk and we talk about effectiveness of medicines. Cancer medications. So if you're using cancer medications, those two, you want to be careful. Medication for your thyroids. So you might have hypothyroidism, hypo or hyper, using medications for your thyroid glands. Once they have expired, you cannot use them again. All right. So and this is another very important class, the nitroglycerins. And these are drugs that basically we use for angina pectoris, where you have this acute pain in the chest, this stabbing pain in the chest, and you may have to use a nitroglycerin drug to put underneath your tongue. So what it does, it allows more oxygen to get to the heart muscle, reducing that sensation. That sensation is often it often happens when the heart is not getting sufficient oxygen. So it gives you this massive stabbing. Okay. So if you are taking drugs like that, you can get the spray. So some people use the spray to spray underneath the tongue. Some people use the drop or the tablet to put underneath the tongue. They're usually sublingual. If you are on these drugs as well, then once they have expired, you have to dump it, and you have to get fresh ones.
Carlton, let me ask you: is nitroglycerin tablets or pills, is that the same for anxiety? Is that a different class?
No, it is
a different
class.
class.
It is different.
Okay,
Yes.
because I do know
we
that
use
some
benzodiazepines
for anxiety.
like
Because I do.
Valium, Xanax.
Okay, so not that's different
lorazepam.
class of drugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Carlton, we have an interesting question coming in. Let me acknowledge our social media listeners, those on Q95 FM's Facebook page and those on the YouTube channel. I see quite a few of you all are on. Our normal listeners, Natalie, Simon, and Hazel and Anthony. Good morning to you. A question coming in here, Carlton, is for the antibiotics, the scenario you gave. So the listener is asking, if you are given antibiotics and you have taken it as prescribed, are you supposed to have any extra? Are you really supposed to have any extra if you have taken it as directed? So that's a good question coming in here.
Right. You should not have extra. What happens is that most of these antibiotics, and we have different classes of antibiotics, yeah? By the way, it's not all antibiotics are penicillins. We have a wide range of different classes, and each class works differently. But to be as simplistic as possible, most antibiotics can be bactericidal, meaning that they can kill the bacteria, and some of them work as bacteriostatic, meaning that they suspend the multiplication of the bacteria. So they can have dual or sometimes one particular role to play. And that is why in cases, some doctors would give two types of antibiotics depending on the severity or the type of infection that is being treated. Now, antibiotics, when they're given, they are given for a specific period of time, and all of the medication must be and should be consumed. You should have absolutely no antibiotics left after your course of treatment. So once you have had antibiotics left, it means that you did not adhere to the guidelines or the directions. You may have missed a day or two, or you felt within 5 days you're doing much better. All of the symptoms or complications that you're experiencing, they've gone. But news, sometimes these antibiotics have just been suspended. They have not been totally eradicated or killed, because we have, as we said, some antibiotics have bacteriostatic properties, meaning that they basically suspend the multiplication of the bacteria and may not necessarily kill the bacteria.
Mhm.
So that is something that we want you to remember.
Mhm.
I remember that there was somebody that asked a question about Omega XL.
Yes, earlier,
Mhm.
Natalie asked if there was Omega XL and if she's supposed to take it daily before meal or after a meal. The timing of the Omega XL.
I normally recommend Omega XL to be taken preferably in the morning after breakfast with a full glass of water. That would be the best time to take it. Just as I am on Omega XL, it's an excellent product that has great benefits in terms of skeletal muscular, in terms of the immune health, in terms of the cognitive health, and all of that, even cardiovascular health. But Omega XL can also be, it also has blood thinning properties.
Mhm.
And so, if, for example, you're going to have an extraction done or you're going to have some dental work done, you may need to suspend the use of the Omega XL at least 3 to 4 days before that particular procedure to prevent excessive bleeding.
Okay.
So a lot of the times when people buy these products, they may not know the other little benefits of it or some of the other features or properties of it.
Mhm.
But Omega XL, that's one of the major things. So if you're going to do surgery, oral surgery, invasive surgery, any type of surgery, and you're on Omega XL, you're on turmeric, you're on ginger, garlic, all these herbal things, they're excellent, but they can cause thinning of the blood and can cause you to bleed excessively. So
Mhm.
that's another little advice I just wanted to give my good friend Natalie with the Omega XL.
Right. Okay.
Right. We will be posting the list on our Facebook page.
Mhm.
So those who want that list, we will post it. What we're going to do, my producer is not there.
No.
So I think I have to continue.
Yes.
Trudy, we get to another important thing.
Uh-huh.
How do we discard prescription drugs?
Yes.
Where
yes.
do we really put those drugs? I think 95% of us, including myself, I'm going to be truthful, we will dump them in the garbage.
Mhm. And the liquid ones too, we
We'll
would dump it in the sink. Yes. So
Right?
we have
But
to.
when it gets in the sink, where does it go?
So that water
It
is
gets
going to
into
go into
our
the
water sources.
streams. Yes. Mhm.
Right? So think of a very lethal, toxic medication that someone may be using and
Mhm.
it's poured down in
Pour
the
down the drain.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So we're talking about environmental complications
Mhm.
or ramifications to these types of actions. I think the issue we don't have enough sensitization from maybe our environmental health department or solid waste department, and maybe from even our medical department as to how should people discard medications. In most developing countries, they do have a drug pickup day.
Mhm.
So they would, just like we have derelict
Yeah, like
white
white goods.
white goods day,
Mhm.
they would have something like that where they would ask people to put all the drugs that expire, would ask you to put it in a particular um, um, device or a bean or whatever it is, and there will be a particular time when they would pass and pick it up. So it's a biohazard waste, they call it
Right,
biohazard
right.
waste, that would be picked up, and that would also include injectables. So if you're giving yourself insulin every day, where do you discard
Of
the lancets, the whatever,
the needles.
the
Mhm.
needles, the lancets, all of these
Mhm.
things, and most of the times we put it on the bin. But
Right.
that puts the people who pick up the garbage, it puts them at risk as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So can you imagine a syringe with an injection in it pricking somebody in the garbage?
Of course, yeah, and even people who use your glucometer and the lancets, from
Yes.
that, we would just throw them in the trash. Hmm.
So I think there needs to be some conversation in terms of public health
Hmm.
as it relates, because when I was preparing yesterday for that particular topic, I said, oh my, I must call my friend at Solid Waste to ask her about it. I know that they pick up from the hospital and the health
Yes,
centers
the
and all of
hospital
that.
for sure.
Right.
Mhm.
But in terms of our homes, what do we do? Right? Another thing that we do oftentimes too is we will dump our pills in the toilet.
Mhm.
Right. So we will dump all the pills. We see it on TV all the time too.
Mhm.
But in recent times, that is a practice that is now discouraged. So
Okay.
avoid flushing. Never flush medications down the toilet, as these can contaminate our water sources
Okay.
and actually affect even the normal flora in the sewer system.
Ah,
Because
okay.
you're a biologist,
Yes.
so you would understand what's
yes.
happening there.
So that's interesting because I don't think people really
Yes.
think of that. So the decay process in those manholes and so on is facilitated by the microbes, the flora, as you
yes.
mentioned. They have to be the decomposers.
Mhm.
And so if you're killing them with medications that you're flushing down the toilet,
Mhm.
then you upsetting the decomposition process in the sewage. That's very interesting,
And
Carlton.
the fumes will start coming up.
Yes. Very interesting. So it's nice that you're bringing that up so people can consider a simple action like flushing a medication down the toilet, the ripple effect it could
Mhm.
have, in their waste management going down the line.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that is one of the things that I discovered, and even myself had done that before.
Mhm.
I never thought of that, the biological ramifications of such an activity, because here it is, none of us want to be in our house and smelling our sockaway,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
all the gases are coming back up and we cannot stay in our house because it's deadly.
Mhm, mhm.
Right? The sulfur dioxide and all these other terrible gases coming up. So we discourage people from flushing medications down the toilet.
Mhm.
Now, again, avoid throwing your medications in the trash. That can lead to accidental ingestion by pets and even people, because we see what's happening around us.
Mhm.
A guy looking for some food, he bursts the bag. You don't know if he's addicted to a particular drug. You don't know that guy might be very literate as well. He's just mentally challenged, and he sees that particular bag of drugs in there. So maybe your grandfather died and he was on 8 different medications, and you don't know what to do. So you just take all the medicines and you just dump it in the garbage. But when it gets there, you don't know what happens,
Mhm.
right? So even for pets and for animals, we want people to be cautious. And that's why it is important for us to know. And maybe we really need to make that call to solid waste to find out, for those of us with domestic trash, what do we do with medications?
Mhm.
Somebody may have died, as we said. I know in many cases, people bring them to the pharmacy.
Ah,
I've seen
okay.
them all the time.
Okay.
They've been buying all the medicines from Jollies. When their loved one passes, they bring all the medicines and they ask us to discard it. If it's in cards, they might ask us if it's still good, donate it to somebody else, that type of thing. And
Mhm.
we've sometimes donated the
Mhm.
drugs sometimes to the infirmary or elsewhere.
Okay. But Carlton, for the pharmacy itself, how do you discard of expired drugs that you may have on your shelf?
Right. So again, the same thing, the biohazard pickup.
Okay.
So that we have
That applies to
that's from solid
pharmacies
waste.
as well.
Right.
Okay.
So that applies to pharmacies as well. So all
Mhm.
our expired drugs, every month we comb through the shelves,
Mhm.
and anything that's expired is picked up, it's marked up well. It has to go through an inventory process to
Mhm.
be removed from the system. They're packed up, and there is a day for pickup
Mhm.
from solid waste, where they would know what to and where they're discarding these
Mhm.
drugs.
Mhm. I'm going to ask you a question. It's meant to be. It's not controversial, but it's a little mind tease for you, Carlton. From the pharmacy perspective, at grocery stores,
Mhm.
we often see when things are about to expire, when people do inventory, I guess, and they see the thing is close to expiration date, it goes on sale,
Hmm.
or it's
Mhm.
advertised as a special: buy this, get one, buy one, get
Mhm.
one free. You know what I mean? And as a shopper, you look at those things and you say, okay, it's going to expire, but I will consume it in the week that it has left. So I'll buy some of it. What obtains at a pharmacy when you do your inventory and certain things are approaching expiration date, things that are on your shelf?
Not for drugs.
Okay.
We can take a chance with drugs because for me, and I'm going to say that as a pharmacist, and I'm going to say that from a PR standpoint, as a public relations for officer for Joel is litigations. It doesn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't worth it. And so we always look at the legal ramifications of
that.
such an activity,
Mm-hmm.
right? So every month, like all now, so the Farmtex would have come the shelves already. Anything that is going in the month, whether it is once we know it is going off, it's taken off.
Right.
It is taken off. There is no sale on no prescription drug or
Mhm.
no kind of drug like that. Yeah, we might do that with maybe a food item
Food.
from time to time, but preferably not. We're very particular with anything that is lactose, milk,
Mhm, mhm,
milk base,
mhm.
right? Anything that's milk base, we try to not put those things on sale. Anything. So there are certain perishable foods that you still want to be very cautious with. But because we're not really in the food business, it's not a big thing for us. I've seen it in supermarkets, you understand?
Mhm.
But in terms of drugs, no.
Mhm.
Right.
Carlton, I think I knew the answer, but I wanted to
Yes,
to
yes.
put
And
our
that's a good-
listeners
that's a-
at ease,
That's
because
an important
people
question.
might think, boy, what would they do if they see they have inventory there and it hasn't been sold, and the expiration date is coming up. So people often think of I would say, the financial
Mhm.
aspect of the company, but you are saying, of course, as a
Yes.
pharmacy and the top pharmacy here in Dominica, you think of the safety of the
Right.
consumer.
And that's why we do not give them away.
Mhm.
We do not give them away. And even if staff may want to take a few, there is a particular lot, there's a particular quantity that the staff can take. And I would not want that any of our staff would be taking maybe 2 or 3, a few, let's say 10 in an expiry drug or a whole big bottle of Valium and say they're going home with it. That would not be allowed.
Mhm,
You
mhm,
understand? So
mhm.
there is a lot of control
Right.
as to what, because I do take from time to time some of these, especially creams or ointments that might be expiring. I take them at my own risk as a pharmacist, but I would not go and take them and bring them for my mother or family or that type of thing.
Mhm.
So even with that, it's very controlled.
Control. That's
It's
good.
controlled.
That's
So that's
good.
why we don't donate them. We do not donate them. We do not put them on sale. We just make sure that they're write off and they are taken to the landfill. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, the take back event whereby maybe there should be specific time of the year where people can be sensitized. Okay, we're going to pick up the drugs at that particular village, or ask people to drop the drugs to the health center
Mhm.
in their district. That might even be smarter. Let them drop all the medicines that they're not using to the health center. The health center now assembles everything, put it with their own expired products, and then it's dumped. So
Mhm.
that is something that can be organized and be spoken about as time goes by. But
Mhm.
I suspect we are running out of time, but I want to
Mhm.
just maybe quickly just highlight some things. The other thing too that you want to put a lot of emphasis on in terms of the safety of your medication is the storage,
Mhm.
right? If you are supposed to store the medication in the refrigerator, ensure that your refrigerator is working well and it is stored there. If you're supposed to store it at room temperature, not close to the window, so when the sun is setting or when the sun is rising, it plasters or it hits the rays of the sun, hits that product for several hours, and then you're finding that when you use the medication, it's doing that to you or that to you. And sometimes it's nothing to do with the medication itself, but the exposure to temperatures.
Mhm.
How does it impact the medication that you're taking? So your packaging is important. where you store the medication is important. Looking at the medication too. You purchased the medication 12 days ago. It looked a particular way. Now, on the 13th day, 15th day, you all of a sudden seeing, the medication looking, the color has changed, or it's brickled, or something doesn't seem right. And I should also note too that as a pharmacist, we are trained to know what medications should be stored in specific containers. So there are some medications that should be stored compulsively in the brown containers. Why the brown
the
containers?
light.
For the light.
Okay.
So that's why if you look at many tonics, they are in dark bottles.
Okay.
Because the light basically interferes with the efficacy
Okay.
of the
Okay.
medications.
Okay.
So there are some pills we do not put them in plastic bags at all.
You put them in the brown
Right? So the
bottles.
very same thing like the nitroglycerins, we do not put them in plastic bags, right? Those that you have to put underneath the tongue. Anything that's sublingual. Why? Because they can evaporate, the potency can evaporate very quickly.
Okay.
All right. So even when we advise people about the use, we try to let them know, do not have the bottle open for extended period of time. Okay.
And that's so interesting, Carlton, because sometimes, as the consumer, as the customer, patient, whatever you want to call us, you may be saying to yourself, it's a plastic bag I want for my thing because it's less bulky.
Yes.
I don't want the medication in any bottle. The little plastic bag will fit
Yes.
better in but there's a reason for the use of the
Right.
bottle and not the
Yes.
clear plastic bag.
That's true. And some medications are very soft in composition, and they can be easily crushed or be brittled. And hence the reason why these types of medications would not, like, for example, captopril tablets. If they're not in blisters, I do not put captopril single tablets in a plastic bag because they're very, very fragile. They can break very
crush
easily.
and okay.
Right. So you want to put it in a bottle itself. Now, again, too quickly, I will do a show entirely about safety and management of medications, because another thing too that I see happening is how nasty looking some of these containers are. So you're in a mechanic shop, you just hold the bottle anyway, the bottle or the plastic bag get dirty. That in itself compromises your medication, because we're talking about contaminants. We're talking about things that can actually interfere with your medication, nullifying its true benefits. So you want to make sure that your plastic bags, they are well sealed, that the Ziploc part is working well, that you make sure you don't have too much air in the plastic bag, right? That you don't throw the mango juice on the label and then it's smeared and you don't remember, you cannot read what's there. So all these little things, how neat. So I love when you see somebody gives me their medical book and it is so put together, well neat. Because sometimes you get this medical book and bugs come out from them. Believe it or not. Bugs come out from it, and all kind of things comes out from it. So these are things you want to really take your time and care for them.
Yes, Carlton, we are
I see
out
we
of
have been-
time.
Yeah, we've been getting calls.
We are, but we are.
Yeah, let's
out-
just take this
one call.
Yeah. Yes, good morning to you, caller. Thanks for calling. Caller, good morning. Yes, good morning.
Well, basically, it's good afternoon for me. I live in the future. Carlton,
Yes,
I
sir.
heard you talking about nitroglycerin, and in my layman's term, know nitroglycerin to have to do with explosives. Are they related at all?
Now, there are some active ingredients in these that can be used for explosives, but that particular class of drugs are drugs that we generally use for a medical condition, angina pectoris. We normally use it for that particular condition.
Yes, the caller is gone.
All right.
Okay.
But we want to thank you so much for your time. I know you were a very attentive audience. We want to thank you for listening. We want to thank you for taking notes. This is what we do best on Health Vibes. We try to make sure that the information that we relay to you each week is very teachable, is one that is applicable, and is one that you can definitely use at any particular time of your life.
And Carlton, we can promise that we have some exciting shows
Oh, yes.
coming up. Your month is coming up, Carlton,
Yes.
June, and we're coming blazing in June on Health Vibe. So our listeners just need to stay tuned. I see quite a few of them on the social media platform. Really appreciated today's show.
Yes. So we came in with a bang. I came in with a bang today, right? I didn't disappoint you in the 3 weeks that I was out. But as always, we always say to you, your health is indeed your greatest resource. Preserve it. Have a good morning, everybody, and have an awesome remainder of the week. Until next week, Wednesday, where we'll be with you for yet another episode of Health Vibes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I had temptations to call in sick, but I end up in Johnny's pharmacy. And don't you got treat, at least it's someone I email.